Okay, Kill2 here with T-Days. This is Alliance Tournament 7. We're looking at a match between Pandemic Legion, last year's winners, and Veni Vidi Vici. Pandemic Legion has brought 2 Golems, 1 Vulture, 1 Tengu, 1 Drake, 1 Curse, and 1 Hawk or Harpy. I'll figure out in a second.
It's a Hawk, and on the V3 team we have a Nighthawk, Sleipnir, Harbinger, Drake, Brutix ×2, and 2 Ishkers and a Scimitar.
And the V3 team has come in really close to the beacon, all except for their logistics ship, the Scimitar, while the Pandemic Legion team has warped to max range from the beacon, 50k. I'm really interested to see what happens here. Pandemic Legion obviously knows what they're doing, so hopefully we'll see the Marauders get used in a really good way. And the match is underway. V3 charging out towards the Pandemic Legion team, and missiles away from Pandemic Legion, headed towards the V3 Scimitar.
Yeah, the V3 Scimitar obviously is receiving some damage, but it's tanking pretty well. The shield's dropping slowly. Hopefully it'll have a local rep on there and it'll be burning away at this point, getting up to speed to speed tank those missiles.
Electronic warfare drones, that'll be more effective against the Golems than it would have been otherwise. The Golems of Pandemic Legion running a little cap transfer chain between them, so they'll probably have local shield tanks powered by the cap transfer between them and between also the Vulture and the Tengu. And the Tengu may even have remote reps, because you can set a Tech 3 ship up for logistics. The Pandemic Legion Curse, however, is running through shields pretty fast. He's about to enter armor, and the Hawk taking damage as well.
Yeah, and Scimitar for V3 is definitely holding okay at this point. It's got some shield damage, but it seems to be holding, certainly holding up well enough at this point to be able to rep anyone else in the team that would get any damage. It looks like Pandemic Legion are, however, going to concentrate on him at this time. The Curse on the Pandemic Legion side, it's regen some of its shield, so it's obviously getting reps from something.
Whoa, Curse down. Curse, Pandemic Legion Curse did die. It got a huge rep cycle. I'm wondering if it was similar to the bait Curse they brought last year with an extra large shield booster, taking cap from those Golems. But it didn't work out anyway. It's down. The Scimitar for V3 only at 60% shields or so, and the rest of their team not taking too much damage. Looks like V3 going to work now on one of the Golems taking damage very quickly. He's at 40% shields already.
Yeah, he's taking huge chunks of damage, and when you consider that the majority of Golem setups will be using, a large buffer tank, he's not got any local repping going on by the looks of it. He's going to drop very quickly when he hits armor.
I do think I just saw a shield boost effect. I think he is active tanking, but it's not enough. With these Brutix and other battle cruisers here, it's too much damage. He's entering armor, even with cap transfer and unlimited shield cap boosters in that drone bag. He's not able to tank this. He's repping back, but he bounces up to 30% and then down into armor again. He's at about half armor. Now recovering though, shields headed back up to about 50%, but still no major damage being sustained by the V3 team.
Yeah, I can see the rep cycles going off now. Obviously, yes, it's repping quite heavily, and it looks like it's either they've swapped damage to that Hawk, which is taking damage on the Pandemic Legion side, and obviously repping straight back up, or they've some sort of e-war going on because he just maybe forgot to turn his repper on until he got into armor.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he would have done that, but that seems to be the case. He's back up to full shields and holding strong. And Pandemic Legion's now switched their DPS to a Brutix, which is going down really quickly. Immediately to half armor, 20% armor, about to hit structure. He's starting to get shield repairs from the Scimitar, but I don't think it's going to be enough to hold him up. At the same time, Pandemic Legion Hawk now entering structure as well.
Yeah, it looks like V3 have started attacking the Tengu of Pandemic Legion, and he's dipped into armor at one point, but he's local repping. I can see his shield booster going off, and he's obviously nearly back up to full again, and there he goes, back to full. So they're not able to make a huge dent. Obviously, V3 losing that Brutix is going to hurt them, the DPS-wise. It looks like the PL team is actually able to tank fairly well with local reps.
Yeah, this step looks really strong. It's surprising that their Curse went down quite as quickly as it did. I guess it couldn't quite handle the DPS. But now with the second Brutix at about half armor, once it's down, it'll just get easier and easier for Pandemic Legion to tank. And it looks like V3 is still shooting at that Tengu, but it's just not really making a dent. It drops down to 80% shield or so and then pops back up to full. And the Brutix, the second Brutix for V3, it just went down. So now only the Slipner, Drake, Harbinger, Scimitar, 2 Ishkars left for V3, and still 2 Golems, a Vulture, a Tengu, a Drake, and a Nighthawk left for Pandemic Legion.
Yeah, the PL team definitely looks like they're able to tank the damage, and with the loss of those 2 Brutixes, that's a fair chunk of damage gone for V3. The Pandemic Legion now beginning to work on the Harbinger of V3. It looks like he's just about to but he's actually repping back, so the Scimitar is obviously still able to rep him. He's not been damped or neutralised in any way.
And now V3's got their damage back on the Golem. He's back to almost armor. Shield's gone, taking armor damage again. Whoa, structure damage. And now the shield boost starting to come back. Still taking damage. About 80% structure now, while the Harbinger of V3 quickly going down as well. He's at about 20% armor and getting shield reps. The Golem down to 50% structure, 20% structure, getting shield boosts, back 30% shield. Oh, Golem down. Pandemic Legion just lost a Golem. Harbinger still hanging in there, getting shield reps from the Scimitar. He's at about 40% structure though, so he may go down soon as well.
Yeah, they're definitely priming that Harbinger. There's target paints and all sorts going on, and there he goes. So V3 losing that Harbinger. At this point, I'm wondering whether all the ECM drones that were floating around have actually been able to jam. I suspect the Tengu might well have been repping, and when it got jammed, then the Golem wasn't able to get additional repping power, and that was why it went down so quickly.
Yeah, these, well, I see a lot of Hammerhead. Yeah, still a lot of Hornet ECM drones, Valkyrie, or whatchamacallem, the medium ECM drones running around as well. And that could be really disruptive. This is a spider tank just like it would be with reps, except it depends on cap. And, you know, if he had to reload boosters at the same time that his friends got jammed, he might be capped out. And might be even as bad as to turn his resistance modifiers off, and he just went plummeting down. But not having as much luck with this Golem, they're shooting at him, and he's at about 90% shield. Now shooting at the Tengu of Pandemic Legion at about 60, 50, 40% shield. Pandemic Legion in turn shooting at the Slipner, it looks like, but he's holding strong at about 70% shields.
Yes, it looks definitely like the Tengu is set up for remote repping. I saw a few rep cycles going off remotely to the Golem. So obviously, what probably happened with the other Golem was they managed to put all their ECM drones on the Tengu, jammed him out so that he couldn't rep, and they were able to push past the local rep on that Golem. At the moment, they're focusing again. V3's focusing again on the Tengu, but he's got a local rep support. I've not seeing quite as much cap transferring going on. The Golem is sending a few cycles through, but obviously if they were relying on both Golems to cap transfer to keep the Tengu running, then he's going to cap out if he tries to run all of his reps simultaneously, and with some target switching they could, V3 could certainly kill that other Golem.
Yeah, but V3's in trouble also because the Tengu would probably be set up to tank 5,000 or 6,000 DPS, and now with 2 Brutixes and a Harbinger gone, he's probably only looking at more like 1,000 or 2,000 DPS, which is much easier to tank. He can probably handle a little bit of cap strain. The only hope I think that V3 would have is if they get another jam, maybe on the Tengu, and can switch over to the Golem, but that doesn't look like it's happening. They've lost a lot of drones, obviously. But at the same time, V3 not taking any damage. That Slipner's still 80% shields. Their Ishkar's holding strong. Not a whole lot going on at this point. It might depend on who gets a jam first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with ECM drones, they're not as powerful as a ship-based ECM module on a bonus ship, such as you can actually do with the Tengu, for example, or indeed the Rooks that we were seeing earlier. So you're very much relying on the number of them and just basically rolling the dice that many more times that hopefully you'll get a lucky jam. And it looks like it worked for them a couple of times, obviously when that Golem started to get pushed down. But at the moment they're still focusing, V3 still focusing on that Pandemic Legion Tengu. He's bouncing around between 50% and 75% shields, and it doesn't look like they're going to break him at this point. I think the only thing that they can be able to do at this point is if they manage to jam out the Golem so that the cap transfer stops, maybe then the Tengu won't have enough cap to actually run his reps for long enough.
Yeah, for a second the Tengu dropped down to 40 or 50, but now he's back to absolute full, and they've switched targets again. V3 is now shooting at the Drake of Pandemic Legion. The Drake having more effective HP probably than the other ships, but less boosting locally, and he's taking damage, but it's at a much slower rate. He's at 80% shields or so, and he is boosting it back. He is probably getting transfers from the Tengu. Yeah, he definitely is getting transfers from the Tengu.
This is very interesting at this point because I'm informed by the boffins with their calculators back at CCP that Pandemic Legion are currently 1 point lower than V3. So if things continue down this route to the end of the match, Pandemic Legion will actually lose. Although they've got some points from killing those other ships earlier, but obviously they don't get the bonus for winning. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And they could turn that tide if they were just able to take out even an Ishkur, which they haven't made much of an attempt to do from what I've seen, but it's possible that with missiles, shooting at Ishkurs that are going 1,000 meters a second pretty steadily, they might not be able to do enough damage to kill one underneath that scimitar. V3 switched back to the Tengu now. He's dropped back to about 50% shields, but each boost cycle is about 25% of his total HP, so he's back towards full now pretty easily.
Yeah, it's definitely looking more and more like it's a stalemate at this point. All V3 have to do is last till the end of the match, and they've won. They'll get the bonus for winning. Obviously, Pandemic Legion need to do something quick to take out something else. Unfortunately, I suspect that with that scimitar active, unless they've managed to neutralise that scimitar somehow with damps or other sort of E-war, he's going to be able to keep that Sleipnir up, no trouble at all, if they're going to keep shooting at it.
And it looks like Pandemic Legion is fielding at least some small drones, which just headed out towards the Scimitar of V3 to try and get some damage on him and see what his tank is like. But it appears to be just fine. He's not really taking any damage. At the same time, the Tengu is still getting shot at, now dipping down to 50%, taking a little more sustained damage, not repping it back immediately, but still doing fine.
Yeah, I've also been notified in local that one of the Ishkurs for V3 is actually warp scrambling some of the Pandemic Legion drones, so it's possible that they sent them off after one of the targets, probably the Scimitar, and the Ishkurs are actually shooting those drones down.
Okay, now I see, looks to me like the Nighthawk now got missiles on the Scimitar of V3, so the V3 Scimitar quickly went from about 90% shield HP to more like 60%. It's not going down fast, but it has continued to go down. He's at maybe 50% now, while V3 still tries to work on that Tengu.
Yeah, I was trying to look at that as the Scimitar. He seems to be not going as quickly as you'd expect a Scimitar to go, so I reckon he's probably afterburner fitted rather than the more traditional micro warp drive. That of course means that he's playing to his strengths, which is a very low signature, and obviously then firing missiles at him while he's doing about 800 meters per second, whilst a very small signature means that they're not doing as much damage as they could do if he had a micro warp on.
Yeah, and he's still holding around 50%. He's pretty good ways away from the fight, probably 50 kilometers, along with the Pandemic Legion Drake. The rest of the ships are all pretty much in ball in the center of the arena, and still the Tengu taking damage. For a while he was down to 40-50%. I thought the cap might be breaking, but he's recovered. And we've been informed there's around 3 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes by now left in this match. So if it stays this way, it will be a V3 victory by 1 point. But that Scimitar continues to take damage. He's maybe 40% shields now, so it's not over yet.
Certainly, it's again V3 shooting at that Tengu again, and him being able to rep it straight back up. With very little time left on the match, Pandemic Legion have started to shoot at one of the Ishkurs. It's got a little bit of shield damage now. Unfortunately, if the only way that's going to work is if the Scimitar is out of range of that Ishkur. I can't quite tell from my position if that's the case. But if they do manage to drop that Ishkur, that will turn the victory to them, and V3 will lose.
And by now, V3 has Pandemic Legion has put all of its drones on that Scimitar, all of its available DPS, it looks like, and V3 continues to try and kill those drones to take some of the DPS off the Scimitar, who's now at about 40% shield, still creeping down very slowly. Here comes some more drones onto him, but he's still hanging in there after burning around the outside of the match. The Pandemic Legion team not taking any new damage at all. They're holding strong.
Yeah, the Ishkurs have been rep back up, so they're not going to go down at this point. The Scimitar is probably going to be able to hold out for another minute or so at this rate. It's just a question now of when's the end of the match. Is he going to be able to hold it to the end? I think he probably will.
Yeah, it looks like he will to me if it's only about a minute. Which it is, we just got confirmation, 1 minute exactly left. So about 20% shields now left on the Scimitar. Chris Sandstorm flying for V3. And that is going to be the decider in the match. It does not look like this Tengu has any chance of breaking. And it doesn't look like Pandemic Legion has any chance of killing any other ships. The Scimitar is the only thing that's continued to take damage. But it's not much. He's still holding around 20% shield.
And the Pandemic Legion have once again targeted the Ishka of Lady Papa, and they're going into about 60% shields at this point. I think it's too little too late.
Tengu down to 20% shields, but not going to do it. That's 10 seconds, and nothing's going to die in the next 10 seconds, so that will do it for this match. We should get word from Claw right now. Yeah, so the match is over. V3 is going to win by 1 point in a very close match with Pandemic Legion, who's using a setup I think may become more popular as the tournament continues.